and welcome to the Second Tier podcast. We are speaking to you straight from Wembley, straight after the Championship playoff final, where Sunderland confirm themselves back in the Premier League in the most dramatic of circumstances. Sunderland and drama has become a very regular thing in the past couple of weeks. I'm Ryan Dilks, of course. I'm joined by the Remain Mundle. To my Tommy Watson, it's Justin Peach.
Good day to you, Ryan.
I feel a bit exhausted after that, Justin.
Exhausted. I feel a bit sick, to be honest. Honestly, I don't think I've fully digested what's happened.
No.
Oh.
I don't think I have either. We are doing this so fresh off the back of the final whistle that the Sunderland fans have just finished celebrating. They're now starting to clear out of Wembley. A lot of very happy but also exhausted faces here at Wembley. The atmosphere has been electric here all afternoon. It has been, exactly what you expect from the playoffs, particularly when it's two big clubs involved, Justin. It's been non-stop, hasn't it?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. It's been a really interesting sort of atmosphere because the Blades fans were making a hell of a lot of noise, especially after they scored. To be expected when the game's got momentum. Sunderland fans, again, you feel the tension, and then Sunderland start to gain a bit of momentum in the game, and you can feel it in the fans. And just football away, aside from the football, you can literally dictate how the game went just by the tension from the supporters.
Yeah, that tension was palpable throughout this game. But let's talk about the game itself. We will get onto the drama very shortly, Sunderland fans, don't you worry. But let's start off with how the game kicked off, because Sheffield United came out of the blocks, didn't they? Kiefer Moore with an unbelievable chance in the second minute, forcing a huge save from Anthony Patterson, where he's basically having to dive backwards, claw it off his line. Luke O'Nien getting injured in the process. Talk us through that moment, Justin, because, from the O'Nien substitute, I said to you, I think that could be massive in terms of the mentality of Sunderland going forwards.
Well, you lose a leader, don't you? But in terms of that moment, it come from a very simple ball, and obviously we expected Kiefer Moore to pull on to Luke O'Nien.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't expect a chance within the first literally 2 minutes of the game. And that gave you an indication of what Sheffield United's game plan is going to be in terms of how they can get the ball into the box. But I think the way Sunderland defended after that was pretty effective, other than obviously the counter-attack. But again, it was a move that we expected to happen. Just over 60 seconds into the game, probably not.
No. And then Sheffield United going ahead in the 23rd minute through Tyrese Campbell. A superb counter-attack inspired by Gustavo Hamer. And that really seemed to rattle Sunderland, didn't they? They were quite nervous in the first half anyway. But then from that point on, it was like they had a right haymaker that they took.
Oh, definitely. I think actually the nerves is quite an important thing to talk about, because the first 20 minutes, Sunderland were really off it, really off it.
Yeah,
and Sheffield
100%.
United, it felt like Sheffield United were very much battle ready. I wouldn't say experience was playing a part here, but they just felt, I wouldn't even say more up for the game, they just felt battle ready, battle hard, and up for the fight quicker than Sunderland did. And I think that's where the goal came from, because there was a bit of uncertainty. I think it was Trey Hume who took the corner. There was a bit of uncertainty in terms of getting to the ball. I can't remember who was running alongside Hamer, but poor communication led to the Gus Hamer putting out a turn of pace, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know he had that in his locker. But it was an incredible turn of pace that pretty much it made the goal.
Yeah, and if we're on the topic of how nervous Sunderland looked in that first half in particular, they only managed the one shot on target. Michael Cooper was not bothered at all, really. He's complete. And you even said to me, actually, Ahmed Hodzic and Robinson had not been tested at all. No. Sunderland, with just everything they were trying, was not working, despite them having 64% possession. You had Mayenda, who only had 11 touches in that first half. Lafay only had 18 touches. And I went into half-time thinking Lebris has got to make some changes. Got some Sunderland fans there giving us a "Away the lads" just as they're leaving. But that first half, I was like, Lebris has got to change something. So I was amazed when he didn't at half-time. I've nearly skirted over it feels like ages ago now. Harrison Burrows and his goal that was disallowed. At that point, I thought, well, that's it. It's game over.
Yeah.
And then VAR. I said on Friday,
honestly,
Justin, I said VAR is going to get involved in some shape or form for this game. Just quickly, right call?
Oh, yeah, it was the right call. It couldn't be the wrong call, because you said it about 6 times in my ear as the whole process was going on.
Vinny Souza is in the way of the goalkeeper. And the funny thing is, he was offside, absolutely. Right decision and everything. But if he walks left, I'm not sure it would have been given as offside.
That's a good point to make. All he's got to do is shimmy left.
Vinny Souza and decision for which way he walked has cost Sheffield United a place in the Premier League. Possibly. Maybe that's being a bit hypothetical.
How many million of pounds has it cost Sheffield United? Just Vinny Souza being right-footed, dominated. He shifts to the right.
That was such a massive moment as well, because the Sunderland fans, they were deflated as that goal went in. But then when VAR chalked it off with the referee announcing it over the tannoy, which is that a new thing?
It's been throughout the EFL in the League Cup as well. So it was a nice experience to witness it firsthand, though.
Yeah, we've not really experienced VAR too much, obviously, with us being in the Championship. But it was good to see it involved, I guess, in person. But on that case, it made the right call, because obviously quite a big moment in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, the Sunderland fans reacted to that like it was a goal, because it essentially, I guess, was a goal in a way, wasn't it? But yeah, that was a big moment in the game. Correct call. But then second half, I was surprised Lebris didn't make any changes. I'll say that first of all. But then the changes did come in the 58th minute. Sunderland not really offering much in the start of the second half. Patrick Roberts coming on for Chris Rigg. I thought that was a big game-changing sub in itself. But then shortly after that, you also had the subs, which we'll talk about shortly, which ended up changing the game massively. But what did you make of Sunderland's start to the second half?
I mean, there was endeavour there, and like you, I was surprised that Lebris didn't bring on Isidore at half-time. I thought they needed to stretch the game a little bit and get pace in behind the Sheffield United backline, and obviously with that not being the case, I was surprised. But you are right, Patrick Roberts coming on, it lifted Sunderland a little bit. I mean, it literally lifted him 30 yards further into Sheffield United's half, because we talk about possession. Sunderland at half-time having 64% of it didn't offer a lot, but actually Patrick Roberts got Sheffield United guessing a little bit more, and that gave Sunderland a little bit more momentum and a little bit more time to create and give the back line a bit of a breath as well. Because I want to really applaud Patterson, Ballard, Mepham, Hume and Sirkin for coming under the cosh a hell of a lot in the first hour of the game, and then Patrick Roberts just gave them a little bit more time just to get up the pitch, and that, as I say, just gave them a lot more breathing space.
Well, the first 70 minutes, I think it's fair to say Sheffield United were much the better side. Sunderland, despite their increase in possession, did not really offer a whole lot. And then what also feels like a long time ago, but was such a crucial moment in the game, almost at the end of that 70 minutes, Andre Brooks threw on goal, forcing that save from Anthony Patterson, and then with Patterson in no man's land, Brooks has the follow-up. Out of nowhere comes that man again, who has been the hero for Sunderland throughout the playoffs. Dan frickin' Ballard coming out there to block Andre Brooks from his follow-up. That was a big moment, and you could say it was the turning point. Whether it was the turning point or not, I don't know, because what followed shortly after that was a whole host of subs. Firstly, Gustavo Hamer coming off for Sheffield United, but then the subs, which have pretty much changed the game, actually, from a Sunderland perspective. You had Mundell being replaced by Wilson Isidore, Dan Neil coming off for Tommy Watson, we'll mention him very shortly, and then everything changed. Just in 76th minute, Eliza Mienda through on goal, equalises for Sunderland after a great assist by, I think it was Enzo Lefebvre. What did you think of that moment?
I almost missed the moment because I was putting notes. I was writing notes down as Mienda was dribbling through. But I think it was quite indicative of the game, really, because I thought Sunderland were quite poor up until that point. And then Mienda getting the ball, who was also quite poor up until that point. Having that moment, honestly, it was just an incredible. And again, the noise just lifted.
Cheers, thank you. Oh, sorry, it's Roberts, not Lefebvre, who set up the Mienda goal, by the way. Sorry, we're still getting shouts from Sunderland fans as they're leaving the stadium now.
The noise lifted at that point, and I think it almost is a momentum swinger, isn't it? It almost is a momentum swinger, because you've got a scenario.
Sorry, there, Justin, I hate to interrupt. We're live on air having a selfie right now. Go on then. There you go. What's your name? Darren.
My 10th time at Wembley. First 8 losses. I've seen 2 in a row.
There you go, mate. On the mark. Put away the lads. That's what we like. Some live reaction here on the Second Tier podcast. That's what we're here for. What were you saying, Justin? Sorry.
It's a momentum swinger. That sort of goal. It really is, because as I say, Sunderland were flat at that point. There was a lot of loose balls. There was a lot of overhit passes and crosses. It was frustrating. Even Patrick Roberts, who were praising for changing the game, overhit a cross that we were sort of thinking it just needed a delicate little chip, and it was really, really bad. So me end up having that moment, honestly, it really swung the game in Sunderland's favour, and you
came a bit out of nowhere as well.
It did come out of nowhere. When goals do that, it takes the wind out of the sails of the opposition, and that was the case with Sheffield United.
Oh, 100%. And take the wind out of Sheffield United's sails. It was suddenly all in Sunderland's, wasn't it? Because you could tell Sunderland were pressing. You had Joe Bellingham firing one over the bar, and then the game kept pushing and pushing. There was an injury break, which took a bit of time, and I was wondering at the time, is that going to kill the momentum for Sunderland? That's what I was worried about. But then, again, almost kind of out of nowhere, Justin, comes that moment. The 95th minute. Oh. Tommy Watson, cool as a cucumber, I would say, gets the ball, takes it about 10 yards up the pitch, or maybe 20 yards, to the edge of the box, side foots it from 20 yards out into the bottom corner, and the scenes, Justin, honestly, I leapt out of my seat. It's common etiquette when you're in the press area not to leap out of your seat, but I did, because I'm a naughty boy. But that moment was just, oh my word, I've never seen anything like it. Being a part of it as well. Yeah, being a part of it is just incredible. It felt like a moment where, similar to the moment I experienced as a Derby fan when Zamora hit that 95th minute winner. Yeah. It almost felt like the entirety of Wembley just went silent for a second. My head was in my hands, and honestly, trying to process that moment as a neutral was hard. So trying to process it, I imagine, as a Sunderland fan, very difficult, but incredible jubilation. But as a Blades fan, my goodness, it's hard. Man. It's a hard thing to take. But the noise was it was deafening, and that's probably why I couldn't hear anything for a brief second. Yeah, the wind properly got, the oxygen just got took out my lungs for a second. Yeah. Just experiencing that, just trying to take in the pandemonium around you. It's such a difficult thing to do, and your head's just a mess. It was such an astonishing moment, and Justin, we think about the great playoff final moments over the years. You're talking your Windasses, your Zamoras, which we'll try not to dwell on for too long. I don't know, Charlie Adam as well. Yeah. This is right up there, isn't it? It's better than the Ballard moment, really, isn't it? Oh my goodness! Oh yeah, horrendously so. If you just talk about narrative, Tommy Watson, local lad, academy lad, leaving for Brighton. Comes on. I'm not expecting him to really do a hell of a lot in normal time, because the way the game wasn't flattening out, but I mean the momentum was with Sunderland, we know that. But just the composure to pick up the ball, astonishing, and have that shot. It was a delicate side foot. He didn't smash it or anything. Delicate side foot into the corner. Mike Cooper had absolutely no chance. That from an 18-year-old, 19-year-old. Come on. Yeah. That is ridiculous. Most people in that position, and I'm talking experienced pros, would take that with the laces, just put their foot through it. To decide to do that is an astonishing bit of composure from him. And we're talking about someone who's 19. I just saw the score, the stats just flashed up for me. He's the second youngest scorer in a second-tier playoff final. Just ridiculous. Yeah. And he's done it in the 95th minute of a game. And the other thing to mention is, as well, he's only started 5 games since mid-December. Yeah. Ridiculous moment for him to do that. And yes, he's going to Brighton. He's leaving Sunderland in the summer. But that is one hell of a parting gift, Justin Peach, and that moment is going to live with all these Sunderland fans for a long time. And as you say, particularly when it's a young local lad as well. Ridiculous. Well, when we talk about the moment meaning so much to him, he went up. This is a game where you want to frame your shirt, right, as a player. Yeah. You want to take it with you. He gave it to a young fan in the crowd, which just highlights, firstly, I think a very important thing, how much of a community club Sunderland is, and how much that connection has been revitalised over the past couple of years of the players between the players and the fans. Yeah. Because as I say, a local lad doing that is big enough. An academy lad doing that, someone Sunderland fans can relate to. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. That moment. I'm struggling to still get over it now.
Still not
Justin.
processed it.
No,
Still
absolutely
not
not. I don't think I
processed
will
it.
be able to process it for a long time. It took me a while to process the Ballard moment, and it's somehow been topped. Sunderland fans, what are they possibly thinking right now?
Get a beer. That's it, isn't it? Just get a beer and process it in the pub and just celebrate with not even saying words, just screaming. That's all you can do.
Yeah. I completely understand anyone who is feeling like that right now. And then the final whistle, just being able to witness that as well. It took an age. I imagine a lot of Sunderland fans have had a lot of years taken off them with how long it took that final whistle to come. But it came in the 103rd minute. First of all, which is a long old time, isn't it? And I believe we can now see what that looked like for all the Sunderland fans right now. Take a look at this. What a moment that is, Justin. Just being able to watch that back again. Honestly. And I imagine a lot of Sunderland fans will be watching that back on repeat for a long, long time. And just the celebrations afterwards with, the dancing to the various songs, the Wise Men Say song afterwards, though you're going to correct me now on the actual song title, aren't you?
I can't remember what it is. So much has happened since we spoke about
we all know what it was. But yeah, that, being able to see that, what a moment. I was always getting a bit emotional, really. Considering we've been following this Sunderland story throughout the season.
Yeah, you are right. It was... talking about emotions, it genuinely was one of those feelings where, I wouldn't say tears are close, but you can feel it, and if we're feeling it, can you imagine what Sunderland fans are feeling?
Oh, God,
honestly, it was a spine-tingling moment, to use a bit of a cliche, but it's the only one you can really use. We're still processing it. We're seeing players now on the pitch still coming out and trying to process it. Dennis Circus just lay flat on the pitch, just trying to take it all in before coming off. Honestly, it's such a moment.
I believe he's taken some turf with him. You may be able to hear some chanting. No Sunderland fans are in the stadium now. What you can hear there, if you can hear it, is the Sunderland players just making a right old racket down below us. They are really trying to take in this moment. I can actually see Tommy Watson right there. He's just looked at us. Hi, Tommy. But he's been speaking after the game. He's been saying, I've been thinking about this for weeks. I think it was written. I couldn't have pictured it any better. I got closed down, saw a little gap, and just used him to curl it into the corner. And as we were just alluding to, having the mindset to just think, this is what I'm going to do, not just hit it as hard as I can. Is ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah, again, we're just talking about his age. His age is so relevant in that scenario because young players they can be so rash, and I think the inexperience showed for Sunderland in the first 20 minutes. They were making bad decisions. Tommy Watson's had a similar amount of time on the pitch, made a good decision, a very good decision, and it's paid off. It's paid dividends. You cannot process it. You cannot applaud it enough.
Yeah, and it's probably the last kick of his Sunderland career as well. I don't know if he had any touches after that, but it may be essentially, or factually, his last touch of his entire Sunderland career. I mean, it's been a very short one, we all know that. And there was quite a bit of controversy around the time when he did decide to leave. But as we say, I don't think any Sunderland fan will care now because he's
paid it back, hasn't he?
Yeah,
he's paid it back.
We had a couple of quotes here from Dan Neil as well. This whole city has come together in the last 2 weeks. That's what Sunderland Football Club is. It resonates with all the people, and when it comes together, it's a powerful thing. For it to end with a last-minute winner in the semi-final, and then today, it's not even what dreams are made of, because you wouldn't even dream of something like that. That perfectly sums it up, doesn't it? It really, really does. Let's take a quick breather, Justin, to have a look back at how our bet builder did from the previous show, brought to you by SBK. It was our final bet builder of the season, of course. A free £2 stake was due to return at £38. I will say, just before we go through it, it was looking very good up until the 94th minute. So that's just how it goes, unfortunately. I blame producer Finn for cursing it when he said, guys, we're about to win the bet builder. Anyway, we had Kiefer Moore to have a shot on target. That came in the first 2 minutes. So that's a good start. We had under 3.5 cards. Again, was looking good. All went a bit haywire when Tommy Watson took his shirt off to celebrate. Under 2.5 goals. Cheers again, Tommy Watson. And we also had full-time results to be a draw. Cheers again, Tommy Watson. You know, he's really cost us there, but I think we'll let him off on this occasion right here, because that moment is one that's not just going to live long in the memory for Sunderland fans, but I mean us as neutrals, it's going to live long in the memory, isn't it? Justin, before we start having a kind of a look ahead to, you know, what happens next for both these clubs, who was your hero today from a Sunderland perspective, do you think?
Are you mad? It's Tommy Watson.
Okay. Who was your man of the match, would you say? Let's word it differently.
You know, for the majority of the game, Vinny Souza was fantastic. I know we're not talking about Sheffield United yet, but from the entirety of the game, that was a big thing. From Sunderland's point of view, I've already applauded them, but the back five of Patterson, Ballard, and the defensive crew were brilliant.
I thought Trey Hume had a monstrous game. He was ridiculous, even not just defensively, but his crosses, the number of balls. If he had Wilson Isdor on the pitch, he probably would have got a couple of assists. He deserved something there. But Dan Ballard, he was a bit nervy at times, but that block, Justin, that block is almost as big as the Tommy Watson goal.
Well, if Sheffield United score in that moment, they'd probably see the game out. They probably see the game out because they've controlled it for large portions of that game without the ball. So again, you're asking another question of Sunderland there to come at you, and it's a difficult thing to do. So Dan Ballard, for me, I think gets my man of the match. But like I said, there are so many heroes out on that pitch. Patrick Roberts coming on and changing the game was massive.
Someone we were criticising in the previous show.
Exactly. But he came up and he stood up, and he took Sunderland forward when they needed to. And again, you're looking at Wilson Isdor. He was dragging players out. Enzo Lefebvre came up in the last 20 minutes as well. So, you know, for the entirety of the game, I go Dan Ballard. For the last 20 minutes, you go Tommy Watson, Patrick Roberts.
I think that's completely fair, yeah. I think most of Sunderland's forward players were actually pretty poor for the first 70 minutes of the game, but then suddenly sprung to life, and that's, I suppose, kind of the, you know, unbridled naivety which, you know, can sometimes play in your favour when it comes to an occasion like this. To be fair, I do think some Sunderland players were pretty poor, had pretty poor games really in those first 70 minutes. I look at someone like Dan Neil, you know, they've won. I don't want to, you know, do them down after they've just got to the Premier League.
About the football, you are right though, because Sunderland, for me, they didn't impress me. And then the substitutions came in, and the game really swung in their favour. So credit to Regis Lebris for turning things around in that sense, because as I say, the ship was really sailing for Sheffield United.
100%.
Massively. So those substitutions coming in really changed the game for them. And then you are right to criticise Dan Neil. Obviously, it's hard to do it in such a time of
not just him, not just him either. I thought Mundell was poor. Lefebvre didn't do a whole lot for the first 60 minutes, and then something came to life.
Meander's another one who was very quiet for a lot of that game. And again, I was very disappointed with him. I thought actually Lebris got his starting 11 wrong. I mean, it paid off in the end. But Meander was a player who was absent for a large portion of the game. But it doesn't matter in a final.
Well, then let me ask you a question. Was Regis Lebris actually the hero of the day? Because you may disagree with his starting 11, but the subs changed everything.
Well, you're defined by your substitutions. If you look at Sheffield United substitutions, why does Tommy Watson have a lot of room on the pitch? Sidney Peck's just gone off.
Yeah, fair point.
The game's defined by the substitutions. The game's defined by big decisions. Regis Lebris probably got them right. Chris Wilder might look back at them and go, maybe got them wrong.
And Justin, need I remind you that heading into this game, or heading into the playoffs as a matter of fact, Sunderland had the worst form we've ever seen of a team heading into a playoff campaign. And they've got promoted.
What did you say to me that I battered away in the lead up to the playoffs? You said they were saving themselves. I called you out on it.
Yeah.
Called you an idiot. Called you everything. Behind the scenes and on the scenes.
Yeah.
And apparently they were.
Well, Regis Lebris, for anyone who's not a Sunderland fan, doesn't follow Sunderland Twitter, you probably won't have seen this. Regis Lebris was getting dogs abuse for the weeks leading up to the playoffs. Sunderland fans were annoyed at what is he doing? Why isn't he playing our strongest team? Even though it didn't necessarily matter, but Sunderland fans still wanted to see them, you know, produce something on a weekly basis. And now look at it.
Yeah.
It's worked a treat, hasn't it? Because he was able to rest players, he was able to rotate the squad, make them 100% ready for the playoffs, and now they're in the Premier League.
Yeah,
that's right. Regis Lebris is the hero of the matter, Justin.
There we go, Regis Lebris. He's won the promotion. Well, he has actually, but it's very difficult to sort of dissect it in that way because their form was so poor, but their playoff place has been wrapped up. They've known what has been coming at the end of the season for such a long time because he obviously dropped out the automatics February, automatic race. So they've known for a long time what has been coming. And I think with the game plans that Lebris has put out in the semi-finals and obviously the final, it's there, isn't it? The evidence is there.
Yeah. And I completely understand what the narrative was for a lot of people coming into this. Have they experienced the high with the Ballard moment? Because, as we've alluded to loads of times, everyone forgets Watford didn't get promoted after that Troy Deeney moment. There's probably other examples I could throw in there as well. But it's very hard to get yourself back up again after that and then, go again, essentially. That's what Sunderland have done here. It took them a while to get going again. We'll make that clear. But it's exactly what's happened, and that's why you've got to take your hat off to someone like Regis Lebris for the job that he's done. Another little stat for you, Justin. 4 of the last 6 winners of the playoffs have been the team which finished 4th.
The new 3rd place.
That's quite surprising, isn't it?
Well, it isn't. I think the 4th place teams more or less know what they're doing. They're not going for automatics, and they're quite comfortable in the playoffs, aren't they? Yeah. So they know what's happening. Southampton last year, they dropped out of the automatic race a few weeks before the end of the season, so they knew what was coming, whereas disappointment drops in on that team finishing 3rd.
Maybe that's the way to go about it. I don't know.
4th.
No, and we'll talk more about Sheffield United very soon, but the fact that they were fighting for promotion for the automatics for so long and fell not at the final hurdle but one of the last hurdles. Maybe that's something to take into account when it comes to the playoffs going forwards. I don't know, but Justin, I wanted to just have a moment to focus on the Sunderland story. I know we've been very Sunderland heavy so far, but that's completely understandable after everything that we've witnessed here today. But we've got to keep in mind Sunderland and the way they've gone about business. Yes, we all know Sunderland are a massive club, but they have been so clever and smart with their recruitment, haven't they? It's something we've talked about basically throughout the whole season. This squad, I think, cost under £10 million in total. Wilson Isidore has boosted that up quite a bit by costing £5 million in January. But otherwise, you look at the rest of that team, I don't think anyone there cost more than £4 million.
Yeah.
You got the likes of Trey Hume, who cost 150 grand, I think. Dennis Sirkin, 250 grand. Those two were less than £500,000, put it that way. And there's probably plenty of others I can point out there. But this feels to me like, and I'm not saying Sheffield United are, the big baddies who have been throwing money around by any means, but this feels like a victory for going about your recruitment the right way. Do you see what I mean? Yeah,
you are right. I mean, if half your defence costs less than a semi-detached in up north, then you're on the right lines, aren't you? It's great. But we spoke to Christian Speakman earlier on this season, didn't we? And we got a lot more insight into their process and how they go about ways. We also need to mention the use of the academy, which is amongst the most effective in the Championship,
100%.
Probably actually in the country. So many academy players come through. Anthony Patterson played in that team. Tommy Watson's come on, had impact. Dan Neil, Chris Rigg. Goodness me, the use of the academy is there.
It must be the youngest starting 11 in a playoff final.
It'd be interesting to check that out. But when you're talking about the players and the use of the academy and the use of signing young players. We put out an Instagram story of the players waiting to go up to get the trophy. They're kids. Yeah. They're just kids. When you're up close with them, when on the pitch they look mature, they look older. When you're in amongst with them, like 5 foot away from them, they're just kids. Yeah. And they've just achieved that. Yeah.
This is what happens when you put faith in youth. A lot of people will look at that and say, yes, Sunderland have a lot of young players, but they're inexperienced. Maybe they would have been contesting promotion, automatic promotion, a lot longer if they had a more experienced squad. I don't know. But today, Sunderland have got themselves promoted with the youngest squad in the Championship. That is remarkable. And when you've got a 17-year-old starting the game, you've got a 19-year-old coming off the bench, both young local lads from the academy, and then you've got several other players who we've already mentioned. it's honestly a remarkable achievement. It's like Football Manager stuff, really.
It is literally like Football Manager stuff. You dream of building a team like that. And again, one thing we need to mention is Regis Lebris was brought in for that purpose.
Exactly.
He was a manager who had experience at Lorient of bringing through young players. Obviously, there's a lot of scepticism surrounding his appointment because just didn't know enough about him. But look what it's achieved. Look what he's done. Look what he can work with. He's a manager who can do it with those resources and that group of players.
Yeah, and one really important thing to mention is, think back to this time 12 months ago.
So much uncertainty.
Oh my word. Sunderland were in a completely different place. The club was basically a civil war at Sunderland with the whole Mick Beale saga. It was an absolute mess. You had Mike Dodds, the caretaker, in charge, who, I wouldn't say a disaster, but he didn't do very well at all, did he? You had Christian Speakman, the sporting director, who Sunderland fans were calling for him to go. Like, they were saying he needs to go if we want to move forward. And they stuck with him, said, this is the process we're going down, this is the route we're going down, and we're going to keep going forwards with that. And now you look at it, 12 months later, who could have saw this coming?
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, they finished 16th last year. So that rise into this scenario that they're in now is incredible. For them to be in the playoff contention, the conversation for players is such a push up, and such a step up as well. And doing that with a young squad, a squad that's been fairly recently assembled as well over the past sort of 12 to 18 months. Yeah. The manager's got no experience of the Championship. Is remarkable, and I think another thing you've got to credit Sunderland for is they've been very open. They've admitted to making mistakes. They've been very open in how they communicate that, and I think that's a really, really important thing to do.
Yeah, Sunderland had got 20 points more this season than they did last season. But yeah, just looking at how much things have turned around, it's phenomenal, really. And I suppose you have got to give credit to the fans for sticking by the team and what they've seen this season. The project has really paid dividends now, when they could have very easily threw it away this time last year. Yeah,
exactly.
Really, really remarkable stuff. Just had a stat here from producer Tom. Sunderland's average age, 23.3 years for the final. That is insane. Rig is the youngest player to ever start a playoff final, which is not a surprise whatsoever. But at just 17 years, I thought he actually did quite well. Actually, I thought he was one of Sunderland's better players in the first 70 minutes. But that's by the by, because getting promoted in the playoff final, obviously the greatest way to get promoted with what must be the youngest starting 11 we've ever seen for a playoff final is absolutely ridiculous. So Justin, here we are. Sunderland, congratulations, you've won promotion to the Premier League. The bad news, that means you're in the Premier League next season. Because it feels a bit like the elephant in the room here, Justin.
Yeah, it does.
Automatically promoted teams, or promoted teams in recent years, I should say, to the Premier League from the Championship have tended to struggle. So it feels very soon to be talking about this when it's literally just happened and Sunderland fans are on such a high. But how are we feeling now that we know Sunderland are going to be back in the Premier League?
I am excited because if you look at the club itself, they're almost similar to Leeds in the size and the attraction that they bring. When you combine that with the model that they utilise, you've got to be a little bit more optimistic than you do with the likes of, if you go back to previous years, your Aston Villas, your Nottingham Forest, who have thrown money at it. Sunderland will invest, but they'll invest smartly. So even if they do invest, they'll do it differently. If you look at Ipswich and Luton over the past couple of years, the way they've invested, they've bought really good Championship players. Never really been convinced by it. Sunderland they'll go out into the European market, they'll sign younger players to develop, and they'll continue going through that process. Nothing will change. They'll continue going through that process. It's a similar process to what Brentford and Brighton have been going through for the past 10 years. Yeah. And that's something that provides me with a lot of optimism. Whether they stay up or not is another question, but they give themselves a very, very good chance of doing so.
I completely agree with that. The Sunderland, you look at what they've done this season, their approach to recruitment, their approach to the academy as well, that is the way to go about it, and they have shown that it can work. Whether it gets them to stay up next season, unfortunately, it's looking very unlikely.
The odds are against you.
The odds are definitely against you because that's just unfortunately the state of modern football. I don't think any Sunderland fans are going to be outraged by that. I think they understand what they've got coming up for them. but they can enjoy the ride. I think you're absolutely right. They'll take this opportunity to, go adventurous in the transfer market, bring in some very exciting talent, and who knows, as I was alluding to in the previous show on Friday, I personally would give them a better chance than Sheffield United. I think they've got a better chance than Burnley. Now, that's partly down to my scepticism over Burnley, but I think the way they will go about signing players this summer is going to be really exciting, because if they're attracting the likes of Enzo Lafay in the Championship, what they're going to do heading into the Premier League as a Premier League club is going to be really, really exciting to see, and building on the talent they've already got, because a lot of this talent here is going to be a year better, a year more experienced. That's going to stand them in good stead to give a good crack at least of staying up and make themselves competitive next season, I think.
Just one more thought, Ryan. Luke O'Nien in the Premier League.
Now you're talking, Justin. Now you are talking. By the way, his celebration for the Meander goal, oh my word, seeing him charge down the touchline with his arm in a sling. Good stuff.
Literally needed oxygen coming off the pitch, or oxygen was out coming off the pitch. And he's walking around wincing in pain, because we're quite close to the pitch where we are now, and you can see his face. He was in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
That left very quickly, didn't it?
Yeah, it certainly did when that went in. But yeah, what a moment for Sunderland. We've got a couple more comments here from Joe Bellingham. People say we are inexperienced, but you get experience by failing. And we have failed together so many times, and in the end, we've come good. And that kind of alludes to what we were saying earlier, isn't it? About, this time where they were 12 months ago. Yeah. It's astonishing when you really consider that.
Well, that's the magnitude of the promotion is defined by the journey they've been on over the past 12 months. The bad decisions that have been made in the previous season to making bold decisions this season, it's just been an incredible journey for everyone associated with the football club. And then you've got to mention the age of Joe Bellingham, a player who's very much impacted by the cause, isn't he?
It's easy to forget as well how young he is, because everyone knows about his brother and how young some of the other players are on the pitch, but he is still very much one of the young guns. And my God, he was at times this season he's been astonishingly good, hasn't he? Justin, we've spoken enough about Sunderland now. I think let's focus on Sheffield United, because look down the camera with me, Justin. It's happened again. 10 times Sheffield United have reached the playoffs, and 10 times they have failed. It was the record anyway for the most times that a team has failed in the playoffs, Justin. And that record has just gone on and on and on. It was very much a monkey on their back, and now it's I don't know what it is now, a gorilla on their back.
2-ton gorilla, honestly.
How many 100 Sheffield United fans can they take on a gorilla? That's the question they're asking now, and apparently not.
Apparently not. No, honestly, from a fan's perspective, we've been there as Derby supporters. We know how it feels to lose like that. It's a sucker punch. It hurts. It really, really hurts.
Oh my God, it's not even a sucker punch. It's oh my God, it's just getting a straight jab from Anthony Joshua, isn't it? And just being launched out the ring.
Honestly, it's really difficult to honestly try and dissect how they're feeling. You can't. It's impossible.
They must think they're cursed.
They must think they're cursed. You are absolutely right. I know we were talking pre-game about whether this plays in the minds of fans, players and staff. It's got to now, hasn't it? It's got to now. Go and get automatics on next season.
And the thing is, we were talking about it a lot in the build-up, weren't we? I don't think it was necessarily playing a part for the first 70 minutes of the game.
They were very effective.
They looked like the experienced side who came here to do business.
I tell you what, it was good final football. It was how you manage a cup final. That's how I would describe Sheffield United's performance up until the 70th minute. And then they just didn't adapt to Sunderland's changes. No. They didn't adapt, and unfortunately Sunderland took their moments, because when you talk about saves that Mike Cooper had to make, what did he have to do?
Nothing really.
Yeah, you have one save from Chris Rigg in the first half, and then up until the final 20 minutes, there wasn't much happening for him.
No.
It was a really, really strange scenario in how quickly the game changed in Sunderland's favour.
Yeah, and suddenly they looked rattled, didn't they? They looked like the team who weren't full of experienced pros. Yeah. They looked like the team who were full of young kids, which obviously wasn't the case. And now Sheffield United fans must be thinking, what the hell now?
What do we do now? Yeah.
We've lost 10 of these games now, and when you look back at how close they came. They were in the driving seat for so much of the season, Justin. At times, they were top of the league. At times, they were in the automatic places for most of the season. I remember when Burnley nipped ahead of them, we were saying Burnley have barely been in the automatic promotion places all season. And Sheffield United have now got the stark reality that they have well and truly messed this up.
They have.
You want to use the B word, don't you?
I don't want to use the B word because I don't think that's the case. I really don't. You know, when we talk about Sheffield United's season, the moment where they do really, where it does derail is that three-game spell. That loss, that defeat to Oxford. That's where it starts to unravel because the cracks appear, and then what's left is Sheffield United picking up the pieces, trying to get form going again, trying to get some semblance of a automatic promotion push again as well. They're picking up pieces after that, and I think that's why we saw a bit more of a fragile mentality in the final 20 minutes of this game as the momentum shifted in Sunderland's favour. I think we saw that in that three-game spell earlier on as well.
Yeah, we spoke to so many Sheffield United fans before the game, and a surprising number weren't confident. We only spoke to, I think, one out of about 10, I would say, who was confident that they'd get the win today, which, considering they finished third, 14 points ahead of Sunderland.
That's 90 points.
Yeah, that says a lot about how much they, I guess, saw cracks of their team heading into the final, quarter of the season, really. So, and we saw at the final whistle of the game, Chris Wilder shaking hands with Regis Lebris, and then aggressively, for the lack of a better term, charging down the tunnel. He was a far from happy guy, and whether emotions have played a part this season, he's a very emotional guy, we all know that, but we well and truly saw those emotions on show again.
Yeah, well, I think that's one thing I would credit him for, because I think as Sheffield United fans, you need to see that from your manager. You need to see it hurting your manager. I don't want my manager coming out and saying we'll go again. I want my manager to come out and show his emotions, and I think Chris Wilder can get it wrong sometimes, but him displaying that level of emotion is a very raw reaction to what was a very raw defeat, and I can only actually praise him enough for that, because what can you do in that scenario? You're not going to stay on the pitch. You want to get down the tunnel, process what you've just seen and witnessed, and you've got to face the media in 10 minutes time after that.
That's one way of looking at it, but we all know Wilder's a passionate bloke because he's a Blades fan. He's a Sheffield lad through and through. I would want my manager to be a bit more level-headed in these kind of scenarios, and at various times this season, I mean, he's proved us wrong absolutely this season, but you look at the various stages throughout the season, I think his mentality has sort of cost Sheffield United in a way, and going back to them trying to lift themselves back up, we were talking about that about Sunderland a second ago, but them lifting themselves back up after them missing out on automatic promotion has really, really cost them. What next for Sheffield United then, Justin? That is the question. Where do they go from here? I mean, you were giving them big praise on Friday, saying that you still think they'll be in a very good position next season, which is quite strange to say about a side who have lost in the playoff final. But are you still feeling encouraged about them?
I am. I mean, speaking to some friends in the press room before, I still make Sheffield United my favourites for promotion next season. The reason why I'm somewhat optimistic is because the squad's good enough. The squad's good enough to go for automatics. We've got teams coming down like Ipswich, whom I'm a little bit sceptical about with their squad. Very, very good championship squad, but is it good enough to get promoted again? I don't know. Leicester, under the cloud of potential points deduction, and Southampton, who have just had the second worst season in Premier League history. That's going to take a lot to process and get over, and I don't think they're going to have a big squad turnover like Sheffield United did last season. So
do you not look at it and think Sheffield United, after what they've experienced here, where they have properly messed it up, getting promoted not just in the main season but in the playoffs now, them bouncing back after that, I know you can point to Leeds actually this season, but them trying to pick themselves up for that, it's a lot easier said than done.
Well, the best example you could give is Derby. I know we keep coming back to it, but they lost that playoff final in dramatic circumstances against QPR, and they folded the following season, didn't they? They were top of the league at Christmas, they were 5 points ahead, blah blah blah, and then they finished 7th or 8th. It can happen, but I actually think this Sheffield United team's a lot stronger than that one, both quality of player and also actually Chris Wilder as well. He gives me a lot of confidence, and I know we can criticise him for whatever, but actually I don't think he'll allow this to happen again. I really don't.
I'm not sure I share your optimism, I'll say that much for sure. I think Wilder has got a big job now trying to get his players back up after this, because it's going to be very, very tricky. I know Leeds have made it look pretty easy this season, but it's a very, very tricky thing to do. When you look at the squad, I still think it's not 100% perfect in places, and you've got the question now of who's going to stay, who's going to leave. That's the big one now. Now, as we were alluding to on Friday, I don't look at that squad and think there's so many players who are obviously going to be leaving if Sheffield United don't go up. Gustavo Hamer, Vinny Souza, they would be the most likely, you would say. Maybe there's a couple of others, I don't know. But that squad, I think, does need fine-tuning in places. I think striker-wise, are they going to have... you look at their top scorers this season, there hasn't been someone who's grabbed a shed load of goals this season. If they lose someone like Gustavo Hamer, that's a lot of, end product that gets taken out of your side. And defensively, I think they have shown a fair few cracks in the final third half of the season. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of work to do here. Yes, they've got some very, very talented players. We're huge fans of Michael Cooper. We're huge fans of Harrison Burrows, Sidney Peck, etc. I'm pretty certain, will all still be there next season. But getting them back in a mindset point of view to get themselves up again, be fighting for promotion, easier said than done.
No, you are right, but a point that you made was you think the squad needs fine-tuning. Fine-tuning is better than overhauling. I think that's a point that needs to be made. And the Sheffield United squad just need fine-tuning. Just go and sign Harry Souttar and everything will be fine.
Maybe.
Everything will be fine. Automatics will be sewn up in March. You'll win promotion with Harry Souttar at the heart of that defence. I mean, actually, relevance, I think their season does start to get a little bit more complicated the moment he gets injured and doesn't really get replaced. That's by the by.
Easy to forget.
But I do think it does not a lot that really needs doing. Just a couple of players here and there, and I think they're in a good set to go again. As I say, I'm very optimistic about the Blades. I really, really am. I think I sit on the optimistic side of these moments. I think these moments, they will define them as players and characters, but I actually think it can serve as momentum, or motivation, I should say.
I'm not so sure. Raksaki's going, Brereton Diaz is going, basically all their right backs are on loan. Yeah. There's quite a few players there who will need, quite a few areas where they'll need to reinforce in the summer. So that's an issue that they'll do, but I mean, their recruitment's been spot on ever since. It's interesting seeing Chris Wilder's quotes after the game, Justin. He says it's going to take a while to get over for the players, the staff, and most importantly, the supporters. Everyone talks about stats. I think we had the biggest chances, but stats doesn't win you the game. They found their moments, and we haven't found our moments. They found themselves in the Premier League, and we've got to go again. He says he wants to go again, Justin. Let me throw a question at you. Is Chris Wilder going to be in charge of Sheffield United next season?
It's a good question. It really is a good question, and I would expect Chris Wilder to think he is. Whether the board want to go in a different direction is another question. I did suggest that there's potential for Wilder to be under pressure should Sheffield United not get promoted. That being said, I think the Leeds example is quite an important one in terms of sticking with your manager. It can actually pay off with obviously Leeds and Daniel Farke. And if I'm backing Sheffield United to go again next season, I am backing Chris Wilder to do it.
Okay. It's interesting saying that. I think he will be. But it won't surprise me at the same time if they decided to change in the summer. I don't think Chris Wilder would walk away from it by any means, because he's Chris Wilder. He bleeds Sheffield United.
These Blades, just Chris Wilder.
But it's a bit of a serious condition, actually. He really needs to look into it.
It's probably why he's so angry all the time. But when we're talking about emotion and handling emotion, I think Chris Wilder pretty much has nailed it. Again, I want my manager to feel it. I want my manager to understand it. And I think as fans, we can process it a little bit better. And even as a board, it might help him in I wouldn't say keeping his job, because I don't think he's going to lose it. I really don't. But like you said, you can't. You can almost expect change, because it just happens in football. It can happen.
Yeah. But let's look on the bright side, Sheffield United fans. First of all, that means you're not going to get battered in the Premier League again next season. Second of all, you've got another Steel City derby to look forward to next season. That's good as well, that's Justin.
That's fun.
And the most important thing is you get to deal with us for another season.
There we go.
There you go. The three big positives there for Sheffield United fans to take away from today. So commiserations to them on what has been a particularly heartbreaking day, to lose a playoff final in the 95th minute. trust us, we're Derby fans. We've been there.
We get it.
We know it hurts. We completely understand Blades fans. But Sunderland, what a way to win it. Huge congratulations to them. This is going to be a day that lives in the memory for a long time for them, particularly with the guy who scored it. And, Justin, covering them this season has been an absolute pleasure. We have spoken to so many Sunderland fans throughout the season. Plenty of them are signed up to our Patreon. Plenty of them are on our Discord. And I fully accept that, they're going to be focusing on the Premier League from here on in, but it's been a genuine pleasure covering Sunderland this season. And as I said earlier on in the show, following their story, particularly after what happened 12 months ago, and the way they go about things is just, magical.
Yeah, they've been a pleasure. They really have been, and it's going to be good to see them in the Premier League because they're a football club. I mean, Sheffield United are a proper football club, but Sunderland,
Premier League club.
Yeah, but Premier League club. But when we talk about proper football clubs, the fans get it. The fans are at the heart of the football club. The football club's at the heart of the community that the fans are obviously living in every day. And I think that's a really important thing, especially in the Premier League, where a lot of the talk is about winning trophies and how much money you're going to make. Sunderland, it gives you a bit of realism, and that's what you really need in the Premier League.
Yeah, and there's two people who were in Trafalgar Square on Friday night, and we managed to see firsthand the passion that Sunderland fans bring to an occasion like this. Yeah, it's been a magical ride along the way.